You ever have one of those days where the universe just decides, yeah, today's the day I'm gonna drop a horror show right into your peaceful little life? That's what it felt like that Saturday in Harmony Creek. 1 second. I'm deadheading roses, dirt under my fingernails, sun on my back, and the next crack, a sound so sharp, so wrong for this quiet neighborhood. It felt like my brain couldn't even register it, not until Lily screamed. That's what really hit me, you know? Her scream, high and thin, like a wounded animal, and suddenly the world went blurry at the edges, colors running together as I stumbled toward her. She was slumped in her wheelchair, face twisted in pain, her small hand clutching at her thigh where blood was already soaking through her favorite yellow jeans. It spread out in this ugly, blooming stain, so much for the sunflowers she loved. And standing there, smoke still drifting up from the gun in her hand, was Brenda Jenkins. Brenda, head of the beautification committee, clipboard queen, tyrant of the neighborhood. Her face was a wild mix of anger and dawning terror, like even she didn't believe what she'd just done. And all of this, believe it or not, started over a little "Be Kind" sign my daughter had painted, tucked into our garden among the daisies. It was supposed to be a message to the world, you know? Just a kid's plea for decency. But Brenda saw it as some kind of personal attack on the sacred laws of Harmony Creek, which, if you ask me, already had about as much personality as a loaf of white bread. Before all this, I actually liked living here. After the accident, after Lily lost the use of her legs, I needed a place where she could get around, where the sidewalks were smooth and the neighbors supposedly watched out for each other. For a while, it was okay. Lily made friends, people waved, life had a rhythm. Me, juggling remote design gigs while keeping up with Lily's medical stuff, but we were managing. Our garden was our happy place. That little sign? It meant the world to her. But you know how trouble starts, right? Quietly at first. You hear whispers about rules, see a few passive-aggressive notes show up on people's doors, trash cans visible from the street, tisk-tisk, and then Brenda Jenkins starts marching around, inspecting lawns like she's the Queen of England. My neighbors mostly just muttered and complied, afraid to rock the boat. Me, I was busy enough with my own life. Until one Tuesday morning when Brenda came marching up my walkway, that clipboard clutched like a weapon, and told me Lily's sign wasn't in compliance. Not up to code, not aesthetically appropriate. I mean, really? It's a child's craft project? I tried to reason with her, asked if maybe she could just let this one go. Brenda wouldn't budge. She gave me 48 hours to remove it, or else a $50 fine. When Lily heard that, she started to cry, actual tears, her little voice barely a whisper. I made it. And I promised her I'd handle it. I emailed the board, explained our story, asked for a little compassion. All I got back was a form letter, cold as ice, quoting Brenda's authority and the rules. I tried talking to neighbors, but folks just shook their heads and told me Brenda had everyone on a string, ever since some old audit scandal no one wanted to talk about. Just pay the fine, they said. So I did twice, because I wouldn't take Lily's sign down. It felt like giving in to a bully, and I just couldn't do that to my daughter. After that, Brenda started making a point to walk past our house every day, shooting us these looks like we'd set the place on fire. She'd mutter things loud enough for us to hear, non-compliance, disgraceful, until the air around our house felt thick with judgment. Lily got quieter, laughter turned into silence. And something in me just snapped. I wasn't just protecting a sign anymore. I was fighting for my kid, for the right to not be steamrolled by some petty tyrant. And then boom, here we are, Saturday afternoon, the world turning upside down. Lily's in pain, blood everywhere, neighbors stumbling out of their houses in shock, and Brenda standing there like she'd just woken up from a nightmare. The HOA president, Henderson, rushes over, face as pale as paper, and someone else, Miss Albright, another board member, starts rambling about how Brenda was provoked, how this was somehow self-defense. I could barely breathe, let alone answer, as the sirens finally wailed closer. The days after, man, those days were a blur of hospital walls, surgeons explaining about pins and plates, Lily too scared to sleep, flinching at every sound. Flowers and cards started piling up on our porch, gestures from neighbors who, I guess, felt bad for keeping quiet so long. But the HOA? They circled the wagons, put out this slick statement about Brenda's years of dedicated service and how my provocative non-compliance had created a stressful environment. Can you believe that? They even paid Brenda's bail. I knew right then, I couldn't let this go. This wasn't just Brenda, it was the whole rotten structure that backed her up. So, I did the thing I'd been avoiding. I called my dad, Michael Thompson, federal judge. The kind of guy who doesn't raise his voice but can make a whole courtroom sit up straighter. I told him everything, Brenda's harassment, the shooting, the HOA's cover-up. For a long second, he was just silent, and I braced myself for him to tell me I should have just taken the sign down. Instead, what I got was that slow, controlled voice he uses when he's furious. I need you to walk me through it, detail by detail, he said. I did. And when I mentioned Judge Alistair, the one assigned to Brenda's arraignment, Dad paused. He's been airlifted to Johns Hopkins, he told me. Emergency cardiac event. His docket's been reassigned to me. Just like that. The man who raised me, who loves Lily more than anything, was now overseeing the first phase of Brenda Jenkins's case. I could barely speak. Relief, shock, all of it. Dad told me he'd have to formally disclose our relationship, and sure, the defense would file a motion for his recusal. But in cases like this, where a judge or his family is the victim, the rules get complicated. News traveled fast. Brenda's lawyer went from smug to frantic. The board started to panic. Now they'd have to answer to someone who knew the law inside and out and wasn't buying their nonsense. At the next HOA meeting, the place was packed, everyone buzzing, waiting for someone to say what we all knew. Things would never go back to the way they were. I sat right up front with Lily, her leg in a bright cast, signatures everywhere, and when Henderson tried to change the subject, I cut him off. We're not here to talk about pool maintenance. We're here because your volunteer shot my child in her own yard. You could have heard a pin drop. Brenda tried to defend herself, spun her story about feeling threatened, but the crowd wasn't buying it. And when I dropped the bomb, when I told them Judge Thompson was my dad, Lily's grandpa, it was like the air got sucked out of the room. Henderson looked like he might faint. Albright started to cry, and Brenda, well, for the first time, she looked honestly afraid. That was the turning point. Neighbors stood up, called for resignations. The whole board crumbled. Then, out of nowhere, new security footage showed up, footage no one knew existed, showing Brenda not just shooting, but harassing us for weeks and trying to intimidate witnesses. Dad revoked her bail. The board resigned en masse, replaced by neighbors who actually cared. Mrs. Davidson, sweet old lady who used to bring Lily cookies, now running the show, vowing to tear down the old rules and start over. The trial was fast, for once. Dad made sure the facts were all there, then recused himself before the jury. Brenda was convicted, aggravated assault, hate crimes, the whole ugly list. She's behind bars now, and the civil case ended with a huge settlement and, more importantly, public apologies from every last board member. The money's in a trust for Lily's care and therapy. But honestly, what mattered more was seeing the community wake up, see them finally rally around us, rebuilding the playground for Lily and all the kids, replanting the garden, making sure no one would ever be bullied for being different, or for asking folks to be kind. Lily? She bounced back, like kids somehow do. The scar on her leg will always be there, but her laughter came back, brighter every day. She talks now about being a lawyer, like her grandpa, standing up for people who can't fight for themselves. I just watch her, amazed, grateful, thinking maybe, just maybe, something good grew out of all this pain. We still have the sign, by the way. Be kind. Weatherproofed now, and nobody dares touch it. And sometimes, late at night, when the world's quiet, I call my dad, not to talk about lawsuits, but just to hear his voice, to remember how we made it through. That's the thing about justice. It doesn't always come easy, doesn't always look like you expect, but when you fight for it, really fight, it can transform a whole community, even after the darkest day. So what do you think? When a community fails to protect its most vulnerable, who's to blame? The bully, or all the folks who stayed quiet? Let me know. Because this isn't just my story. It could be anyone's. And I guess that's what makes it matter.